Hello everyone, and welcome to Quickbytes. My name is Bob Sindelar, and on today, August 14th, 2009, we'll be talking about the SUMA module. The basic concepts here are you have a couple extra types that get brought in by using the SUMA module, and these types are suppliers, sourcing administrators, parts, context, rules, reports, and you can also apply subtypes of these types and attribute them just like any other type as well. Another key factor of SUMA is the part request workflow, which allows users within the system to create manufacturer or vendor parts and bring them in as linked to your original parts. So we'll start at the beginning with the suppliers. After you install SUMA, you get a couple new types in your type and attribute manager called suppliers. There's two different actual types, manufacturers and vendors. As far as Windchill is concerned, they behave in pretty much the exact same way. It's just a way to segment more in a business process, whether as a manufacturer you can select a supplier to be a manufacturer if they make the part that you purchase from them, and you can set them to be a vendor if you just purchase the part and they purchase from some other manufacturer. It's very easy to do in Windchill. What you would do is your site administrator or your organization administrator accesses the principal administrator, and then you can create a new organization principal, not a container but a principal, and then you can assign that organization principal to the supplier type. A sourcing administrator is a user in your system that will be responsible for maintaining your list of manufacturers and vendors, and also maintaining your list of approved manufacturer lists and approved vendor lists, which are the AMLs and AVLs, which I will explain shortly. Usually the person that you designate as this administrator is whoever is a component or procurement engineer in your company. Now, just as important as it is to have suppliers, the new type that also exists with SUMA is supplier parts. Under supplier parts, you will also get two new subtypes of supplier parts, which are manufacturer parts and vendor parts. These parts function almost exactly the same way as a normal Windchill part, with the difference being you have an additional hard-coded attribute that you can link any manufacturer part to a manufacturer supplier that exists in your system, and then a vendor part to a vendor supplier in your system. What this allows you to do is create a link between who you're buying from and what they're actually supplying you. So for one example, a business case here is the manufacturers can be actual producers of parts if they're very specific parts to your assemblies. Vendors can be resellers of parts. Maybe they're just off-the-shelf nuts and bolts, things like that. You can split them up in that way. Now we'll get on to AMLs and AVLs. Basically, these are just a list of your approved or preferred or non-usable manufacturers and vendors for parts. The way this works is the actual list is put on a part, and it is put on your Windchill standard part, your OEM part. So what it allows you to do is, say you have a certain bolt in an assembly. You can click on the details of that bolt, and you can check your AMLs and AVLs to see how many different suppliers give me this bolt, and you can also mark if you're allowed to use this bolt, if they're approved for use, or if they're preferred to be used, or if there's some reason that you can't use them as well. You can set the supplier for that part in any one of those contexts. As far as bill of material integration goes for supplier parts, this can be done in a couple of ways. You can either link them to your standard OEM part through the AMLs and AVLs like I have explained already, or you can also, since they're just another type of part, you can integrate them directly into your bill of materials. Sourcing contexts are another new item with the SUMA module. It's a way to basically split up your suppliers into different categories. You can then use the context to sort suppliers and sort their parts automatically as you create them. For one example, you can have two sourcing contexts where you can have suppliers that are within the United States, and you can also have suppliers which are, overseas. What this would allow you to do is split up your parts based on maybe you prefer to have parts come from suppliers in the United States because shipping costs are cheaper or certain environmental or quality standards are met versus overseas. Along with the sourcing context, you can also make sourcing rules within the contexts. What the sourcing rules will do is read, based on what you put in the rule, a certain factor and decide automatically if the part that you're using should be approved or preferred or not usable. Using the same example as before, you can say that when you create a new part, if by the sourcing rule, it comes from a supplier which is sorted in the sourcing context of the United States, you can mark them as preferred. Similarly, say you have a part coming from Germany that meets your quality standards, you can mark them as approved. And let's say from Japan they have different standards that aren't compatible with your system, maybe you can't use them. But maybe they're working on it in the future, so you want to keep a record of it. That's how you can use this here.